an age where rhetoric and emotions determine people's beliefs, one of the most countercultural things that you can do is to objectively look at the evidence regardless of how it makes you feel. It is also important to remember that things are not often what they seem, that history is not what you've been told, and that the truth will always be hated by the world. So today I invite you to abandon political correctness and oversensitivity so that you can learn the truth. Unfortunately, many will think that the things I'll share with you today are highly controversial or even hateful. Yet the good thing about the truth is that it remains true regardless of what we think about it. With that in mind, many believe that the Jews are God's chosen people, and that God intends to bless the Jews and the state of Israel at some point in the future because he obligated himself to do so with Abraham. One of the reasons why people think this makes sense is that they believe today's Jews are direct descendants of Abraham. Many Christians even believe that the Zionist state of Israel, and even anyone calling themselves a Jew today, have a special place in God's heart, and therefore, we as non-Jews need to bless and honor these people more than others. Otherwise, God will curse us or withhold his blessings. These and many similar attitudes must be tested thoroughly with Scripture and with history. After all, when the devil tempted Christ in the desert, he did so by twisting God's word to suit his agenda. This is why we must exercise discernment and test all things. So, let's take a close look at these ideas and see what the Bible and history really have to say on these issues. We're going to skip past the rhetoric and look solely at what the evidence tells us. And those who have ears to hear and eyes to see will learn the truth. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite, or a Hebrew. Jewish Almanac, 1980, page 3. The first most important thing to realize is that the word Jew is a loaded term. It originates from one of the tribes of Israel named Judah. Judah was one of Jacob's 12 sons, and the term Jew refers to people who lived in or were from Judah, the territory of land that the tribe of Judah received as their inheritance once they entered the Promised Land. Later, this was called Judea, which is a Greco-Roman transliteration, and that means that the Jews were specifically from Judea. This may seem like no big deal, but it's actually very significant. Firstly, what it means is that those before the territory of Judah was created were not Jews. Moses wasn't a Jew, nor was he Jewish. Jacob was not a Jew or Jewish either. Isaac wasn't a Jew, nor was he Jewish. Abraham wasn't a Jew, because Abraham was a Hebrew, a descendant of Eber. Abraham was also promised to be the father of many nations, not just one nation or group of people, i.e. the Jews. In fact, up until and including Jacob, all of these patriarchs were referred to as Hebrews. God famously changed Jacob's name to Israel, and between the time of Jacob, through the time of Moses, and up until the territory of Judah was established, the people of the Bible were called Hebrews, respectively. If the significance of these things isn't immediately obvious, don't worry. It will become very plain as we dive deeper into this. Moving on. What this means is that once the term Jew even began being used, it was really only used to refer to a minority of the people within Israel, that is, the Judeans or those from Judah. The Bible is therefore not about the Jews, nor are the Jews the founders of monotheism, nor even the majority of people highlighted in Scripture. Samson was from the tribe of Dan. Deborah was from the tribe of Ephraim. Gideon was from Manasseh. Elijah came from Gad or Manasseh. And Elisha, his protege, came from Issachar. Joshua and Samuel were from the tribe of Ephraim, and Moses and Aaron were from the tribe of Levi. All of these famous Bible heroes were Israelites, not Jews. They did not come from Judah, nor did they refer to themselves as Jews, because they had no reason to. The Bible also speaks of Egyptians, Phoenicians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Armenians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and countless other pagan tribes and peoples. So, anyone telling you that the Jews are the center of Scripture is just not telling you the truth. But now things start to get a little more complicated, and for that you have to know a bit of history. When the Israelites took the Promised Land, they eventually formed two kingdoms, Israel and Judah, or the northern and southern kingdom. Israel, which was the northern kingdom, was composed of the 10 tribes of Israel, and Judah was composed of Benjamin and Judah in the south. It's important to remember now that the Israelites were surrounded by pagan tribes that they had failed to exterminate many times, often intermarrying with them and adopting their pagan practices instead. This disobedience angered God, and he brought judgment on both Israel and Judah through the various empires that conquered them and took them away, like the Assyrians and the Babylonians. After the Babylonians were themselves judged by God using the Persian Empire, a window opened up for some of the Israelites to move back to their territories. Of course, by this time, which was around the 5th century BC, that territory had been taken up by pagan tribes again, particularly the Edomites. This is a significant detail, so remember it for later. Now for a quick genealogy review. Isaac, Abraham's son, had two sons, Jacob and Esau. Jacob was the younger and received God's blessing. Jacob gave rise to the 12 tribes of Israel, or the Israelites. In Genesis 36 verses 2 through 3, the Bible tells us that Esau took 3 wives, 2 being Canaanites, which was a prohibited union by God, and an Ishmaelite. The various sons that Esau had with these women together created the Edomites. Edom means red, and Esau was described as being born red in Genesis 25 verse 25. Nevertheless, because Esau lost his inheritance to Jacob, this bitterness and hatred was passed down through the generations. The Edomites despised their Israelite cousins and often sought to destroy them, or at the very least hinder them in any way possible. Some examples of this are the Edomites blocking the Israelites from going through their land to the Promised Land, despite the Israelites' assurance of a peaceful pass-through. This is found in Numbers 20 verse 21. David and Saul conquered the Edomites many times, and an instance during the reign of Jehoshaphat where the Edomites tried and failed to take over Israel is recorded in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the Edomites allied themselves with Nebuchadnezzar during the Babylonian invasion and destroyed the first temple. This is documented in Psalm 137:7. All of this history is important to understand for what comes next. Edom and Israel were mortal enemies, and Edomites had nothing to do with God, God's promises, or God's people. Remember that Esau married 2 Canaanite women, a union that God prohibited because the Canaanites had abominable practices, like sacrificing and eating their children, orgies, sorcery, ruthlessness, and basically everything that God hates, just as he says through the prophet Micah in Micah 1 verses 2 through 3. So now we have some context to understand a few very important developments in the history of the Israelites, as well as the history of the term Jew. Throughout the Israelites' tenure of the Promised Land, they frequently rebelled by intermarrying and abandoning God's laws. This brought swift judgment on both Israel and Judah, but it also diluted their blood and what it meant to be a Jew in antiquity. When the Persians allowed the Israelites to return to Jerusalem and their respective kingdoms, these places were already inhabited by Edomites and other tribes. The Israelites again intermarried and disobeyed God, and this forced the prophets and leaders of the time to make the Israelites abandon their wives and separate themselves. This is documented in both Nehemiah 9 verse 2 and Ezra 9 verse 2. After the Persians came the Greeks with Alexander the Great, but Alexander quickly passed away and his kingdom split into 4 major territories. One of these territories, called the Seleucid Empire, ruled over the areas formerly held by Judah and Israel. In the 2nd century, a group of revolutionaries called the Maccabees, descendants of the tribe of Levi, successfully revolted against the Greeks and reintegrated the land and people back into the laws of Moses. These reforms were a step forward, yet consistent with the countless compromises of their forefathers, the Maccabees, or Hasmonean dynasty, forced the surrounding Edomites to get circumcised and declare themselves Jews, rather than expelling them for having destroyed the temple and having aided the Babylonians in the past. All of this was done around the 2nd century BC, and what that means is that by the time of Christ, those who lived in Judea and called themselves Jews were not necessarily true Israelites, like Jesus, but rather any possibility of the following: descendants of prohibited unions, converted Edomites that were basically Jews in name only, or genuine descendants of the tribe of Judah. In fact, it is documented that the Sadducees, one of the political powers of Jesus' time who often sought to accuse him, were composed of at least partly Edomite Jews. King Herod Antipas, who killed John the Baptist because John condemned Herod's marriage to his brother's divorced wife, and also betrayed his kinsman and murdered his next of kin in order to earn the throne from the Romans and become king of Judea, was also an Edomite. King Herod I, his predecessor and also an Edomite Jew, murdered many of the Pharisees, Sadducees, and rulers in order to solidify his political position, bringing in his Edomite kinsmen and appointing them to positions of power. Social realities are probably why the Apostle Paul identifies himself as a Hebrew and as an Israelite in Philippians 3 verse 5 and Romans 11 verse 1, rather than just as a generic Jew. It is also why the Gospel of John often directly mentions the Jews by name in the treachery they were seeking to do against Christ. Whether this treachery is grounded in the Edomite hatred for their brother Jacob, or the hatred of Judah toward his brother Joseph. Remember that Judah sold his brother Joseph into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. Sound familiar? Being a Jew by Jesus' time was a loaded term to say the least, and it by no means meant that you were among God's chosen people. Nevertheless, the conversion of the Edomites is confirmed by the famous historian Josephus in his Antiquities of the Jews, Book 13, and also the Greek historian Strabo in his work Geographies. Fast forward now to after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the Jews led a major revolt against the Romans and lost, resulting in them being scattered and all records of genealogies being destroyed. Today the Jews want to rebuild the Third Temple and are gathering together a supposed Levitical priesthood. Yet it is impossible to trace genealogies to the original Levites because all records were destroyed long ago. In fact, despite the judgments the Jews received for killing Christ, they attempted two more revolts in 115 AD and 132 AD, called the Kitos War and the Bar Kokhba Revolt, respectively. These revolts also failed, leading the Jews to be completely banished from Judea, and Judea to be renamed to Syria-Palestina. Further complicating this already ridiculously complicated issue is the Khazarian conversion of Judaism around the 8th century. The Khazars were a pagan Turkic tribe of
basically, Jews need to be like Irish people and Italians. Just be nationalistic, get a fucking job, do good for the country you live in, and quit brainwashing the whole world to die for your stupid bullshit. And you're entitled to a whole fucking country. Go fuck yourself, Zionists.
Peoples that had settled in the area of modern-day Ukraine, Crimea, and Kazakhstan. Like all empires, they eventually were dispersed, and these people migrated into other areas like Russia and Europe. This is why anyone who claims to be a Jew today cannot reliably trace their ancestorship to the biblical Israelites, or even the tribe of Judah. It is impossible because no records exist, and it is also impossible because there have been so many infiltrations of pagan tribes into what it means to be a Jew. An important point to now make is that this is also why the term anti-Semitic is abused by today's Jews to manipulate social perceptions. It is an abuse because, first and foremost, the term doesn't apply in the way they make it apply to themselves. Anti-Semitic means against Shem. But who is Shem? The answer is that Shem was one of Noah's sons and the father of many peoples, such as the Babylonians, Persians, Arabs, and several others. To be anti-Semitic is to be against any of these peoples. Yet today's Jews appropriate this term only to themselves while creating new terms like Islamophobia for other Semitic peoples. This is wrong for at least two reasons. The first being that the Jews of today cannot reliably call themselves Semites or direct descendants of the tribe of Judah due to all of the historical context we just covered. The second reason is that even if they could, anti-Semitism doesn't apply just to people from the tribe of Judah. But even more interesting than all of this is the origin of the term anti-Semitism and its roots in Jewish Bolshevism. It is a fact that Karl Marx, one of the originators of communism, was born a Jew and grandson to two rabbis. Nevertheless, Marx was in practice an atheist. Leon Trotsky, a major figure of the Bolshevik Revolution, was also an atheist Jew. Stalin, who everybody knows, was also part Jewish and entrenched in the Jewish community. Stalin's official ethnicity was Georgian, but there is evidence he was part Ossetian, which was a group of people around Georgia and Russia. Why this is important is because Stalin's surname, Zhugashvili, was a Georgianized Ossetian version of Djugashvili. In Ossetian, the word Dzug means herd, while Dzuga means Jew. Shvili in Georgian means son of, so Djugashvili means either herd or son of a Jew. Most of Stalin's relatives were also married or related to Jews. Catherine Svandice, his first wife, had a brother named Alexander Svandice, who was married to a Jewess, Maria Cohen, from a rich Jewish family. Stalin's sister-in-law, Anna Haliluyeva, married Stanislav Redens, who was Jewish. Stalin's eldest son, Jacob, married Judith Meltzer, who was also Jewish. Stalin's daughter, Svetlana, married a Jew named Grigory Morozov. More facts about the Jews and communism are as follows. Lazar Kaganovich, another top Bolshevik leader, was a Jew. Lenin, who is also well known like Stalin and Trotsky, likely had Jewish descent from his grandparents. In fact, most of the heads of the secret police, Gulag administrators, and famous Bolshevik terrorists were all Jews. When communism spread to China and the surrounding areas, about 80 to 90% of those coordinating the efforts were Jews. Why all of this matters is that the term anti-Semite or anti-Semitic did not exist up until the 20th century. For the countless times that the Jews were overthrown and destroyed by pagan empires, or later when they were expelled from European countries and banned, not a single time was the word anti-Semitic ever used by anyone, Jew or Gentile. So, what changed? The answer is Bolshevism. Just like the CIA would later do with the assassination of Kennedy, by creating the term conspiracy theorist to discourage criticism or analysis of the government's role in subterfuge, so too did the Bolsheviks do several decades earlier with their communist revolutions. People knew that most of the Bolsheviks were Jews or married into the Jewish elite and saw what was happening. And as a result, any criticism of the Jews was sharply outlawed and punished with torture or death. This is where the term anti-Semitism comes from. It doesn't come from the Bible, it doesn't come from God, and it doesn't even relate to actual Jews from Judea. It is a term originally created to shelter a renegade group of Edomite Jews, along with false Jewish converts and their sympathizers who could care less about God or the Bible. Today it is used as a thought-stopping device when any form of criticism is directed at Zionism, the Zionist state of Israel, the mainstream World War II narrative, or the Jewish power structure that exists across the world, and is obvious for anyone with a few minutes on their hands to Google the early life of politicians, CEOs, pharmaceutical industry leaders, banking leaders, and people in Hollywood or the media. Also, let's not forget all of the fake anti-Semitic crimes exposed as hoaxes perpetrated by Jews themselves, which really begs the question as to why these people would perpetuate their own victimhood to the masses. Perhaps it has to do with maintaining the political, social, and financial benefits of that victimhood, but I'll let you decide. Either way, don't be fooled by it.
Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country. As you know, they have power, which it's okay, they are talented and they have power, money, and media and other things. And their attitude is Israel, my country, right or wrong. They identify fiction. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And it's very easy to blame people who criticize certain acts of the Israeli government as anti-Semitic, and to bring up the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jewish people. And that justifies everything we do to the Palestinians.
We now move further through history and closer to the modern day.
You guys, I know nobody gives a shit, but gasoline, you're gonna give a shit when gasoline ends up being like $10 a gallon and shit, guys. So you've seen that Bolshevism. I know nobody cares. Nobody's watching right now. They rather see tits or like cats dancing or something stupid. I mean, it goes to show you how fucking stupid this world got, because if we lived in like the Renaissance age or just 150 years ago, so many people would use these devices called phones and iPads and shit. They'd be using it to learn shit, where you guys just want to jack off the dumbass idle bullshit. So gasoline is going to go up exponentially high, at least in the western part of USA, okay? And I've disclosed what the fuck it's about, guys. It's because globalists, the Illuminati, people who run the world, who happen to all be fucking Jews, have brainwashed USA and the dumbass Protestant evangelicals that Christians in the West and America only exist to wipe Israel's ass. Therefore, we have to unnecessarily piss off the Saracen, all the Muslims, all the Arabs who distribute most of the oil in USA. Okay? The video I just showed, guys, is about, the video I showed is called Why Jews Are Not God's Chosen People, and the channel is called The Dance of Life Podcast with Tuno or some shit, okay? Nobody cares. They rather see tits. They rather see cats playing bongos. They rather see people playing shitty, stupid music. But this is fucking important, guys. You guys are all gonna let yourself get fucked. And when living costs is too much, when you don't have health care and retirement benefits or a social security plan, and you go, oh my God, what happened? Oh, it's the Republicans. Oh, it's the Democrats. Oh, it's Trump. It's fucking Jews, you fucking idiots. And that's why, like, hello guys, I hope you're watching my video. My video is basically about why gasoline is going to go up like $10 per fucking gallon, okay? And when this video uploads, or if you could rewind it or some shit, it basically entails that all the rich people of the world, the globalists, the Illuminati, the big bankers, all that shit, for some fucking reason, they happen to all be Jews. They have Zionist fucking Jews, okay? And it's taboo to say anything bad about that shit. And again, like I said, when gasoline is $10 a gallon, when you don't have any retirement or Social Security, and you go, oh my God, it's the Republicans. Oh fuck, it's the Democrats. No, it's somebody brainwashed everybody that USA and all of Christianity and the West only exists to wipe Israel's ass. Who the fuck asks for a whole country? Have we ever seen the Italians or the Jews who helped USA fight in World War II, who used to work in coal mines and shit, who used to be like, you know, making mobsters and shit to survive? Have you ever seen those guys ever demand their own country and ask for reparations or some shit like that? No, man. Who the fuck says, why in World War II do we only care about the Jews? What about the Polish? What about the Gypsies? What about gay people that Hitler also killed? What about them? Why don't we recognize them? Okay? It doesn't make any fucking sense, man. And if it's banned from the internet and it's taboo to talk about, and I'm not the smartest person in the world. All I know is smart ass people who actually care about your betterment of life have all been saying, and it's not racism, it's not white supremacy. For some fucking reason, everybody who owns stupid shit, that leads to communism, that runs social media, that runs all these like political fucking propaganda, they happen to all be Zionists, and they're gonna make the quality of our life shit. Okay? So I guess like I'm gonna get my shadow banned. I don't care about monetization, and everybody they tune in and they tune out because they rather see tits or somebody playing the bongos or some shit. But this is really fucking important, guys. And when gasoline is $10 a gallon and the economy sucks and you can't afford to give your family a quality of life or buy cool shit, you're gonna know fucking why, man. And the first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna blame the Democrats, you're gonna blame the Republicans, but really you should look in the mirror and you should know that everybody doesn't give a shit. They just live to be entertained, watch sports, listen to music, whack the fuck off, and they don't use these devices called stupid fucking technology to research that we're all getting fucked by the globalists. So I try to contribute to the help of this planet, but fuck it.